You're going to discover something pretty quickly in our industry, and that is you get excited by all the incredible stuff that you put in someone's piece of equipment that you delegate for them, and they could care less. That's right. You give them dual core processors or quad core processors. You give them all this incredibly fast memory. You've equipped the inside of their machine with so much great technology. They just don't care. What do they care about? They care about the display. They care about how it looks. They care about how it feels, the keyboard and the mouse. So you'll hear me say it again and again. We need to really attend to components like the display for our users so that they're super happy. And because a person's enjoyment of their device is directly correlating to things like the display, the technology has really come a long way. We'll see that in this nugget. In fact, I remember fondly my first system, the Radio Shack color computer, the TRS-80 Coco. The color computer would plug into the television. So my television was my monitor, was my display. By the way, notice the cassette tape. That was the storage device. And hey, peripherals weren't a problem. We had a really cool joystick with the Coco. Wasn't included. That was an extra fee, of course. I remember sitting down at this Coco and writing my first program. It was a lottery quick pick for my father. At his request, I wrote him a lottery quick picker. The first number it ever produced, 000000. It was in front of him. Never have your client there when you're doing your first beta test of your own software. The second number it produced, 4, 5, 11, 12, 21, 31. I've won millions since that day. Now, what's really super interesting is that old Coco plugged into a television, and we do need to know about television technology as an A-plus person because a lot of our users are going to want such a big monitor, they're actually going to want to plug into a television in order to enjoy their technology. So televisions, yeah, we need to pay attention to. This is my second ever monitor, and this we can forget. This is a CRT. The CRT style monitor is gone from the A-plus world. Thank goodness. It's gone from most office environments. They're super heavy. They have a really big bezel. Remember, the bezel is any space around the viewable area. So these things were also of such a low refresh rate that we would literally see flickering with the naked eye, all kinds of problems with these devices. We just mentioned, by the way, terminology that I want you to know, and that's refresh rate. That is how often the screen is being repainted for you. That's a very crude analogy, but it'll get the job done. So a very low refresh rate, and you could see flickering. This is why when you take a picture of what's on the screen, that picture never seems to come out all that great. You will literally catch it in the middle of a refresh potentially, and you see distortion in your photograph of what you tried to capture on screen. Oh, by the way, I guess we shouldn't say these are completely gone from the A-plus world because these were subject to so many problems like burn-in if an image was left on them for a long time, that actually could rear its head in our exam environment that way. So problems that might be existing with older monitors like this, that would certainly be game for the exam environment. So of all the displays that I have in the home and the office today, my favorite? The Retina 5K display on my iMac. Let's take a look at the parameters here. So it's a 27-inch display, and notice that's diagonal, and that is giving you the viewing area, so it wouldn't include any bezel area. The reason why we have bezel area on a device like this is because all of the components are in the monitor itself. So the CPU is in there, the RAM for the system is in there, everything's contained in this kind of all-in-one design. This is a Retina 5K display, meaning it supports 5,120 by 2,880 resolution. More on resolution in a moment, but understand that's basically just saying how many little dots are making up the display. When you create an incredible high resolution like this, your eye shouldn't really be able to tell it from reality, and that's why they put the marketing term of retina in there. The human eye really can't tell this from reality, and I can tell you, sitting in front of this, it's nothing short of breathtaking. Now, keep in mind, it all depends on what's on screen. So when you have their 5K wallpaper and their 5K tuned applications up, sure, things look great. But a crappy picture just going to look more crappy if it's in the Retina display. Keep that in mind. Crappy, by the way, is the official terminology we use. Now, notice this is IPS technology. Wait a minute. I thought we were talking about displays here. I've never heard of an IPS display. What I've heard of and what I've heard is common today is liquid crystal or LCD displays. Yes, this is an LCD or liquid crystal display. And generations of technology have given us different LCDs. There used to be what were called passive LCDs. These would have a row of transistors across the top and a column of them down the side, and they would send pulses to each pixel at the intersection of the row and column combination. These are pretty much obsolete these days because of very poor image quality, poor refresh rates, etc. What we have today is active matrix technology for LCDs. This allows each individual pixel in the display to be controlled. And another set of technologies that we've had is twisted pneumatic or TN LCD displays or IPS, in-plane switching displays. Sure enough, the in-plane switching is a newer technology for LCDs. It gives us better color quality. It tends to be a bit more expensive, but Apple certainly doesn't care when they price these devices. These devices tend to be a little on the pricey side for personal computers. So we target IPS, the newer technology in LCDs, compared to the twisted pneumatic technology. Something else that's interesting is with LCDs, the liquid crystals themselves, they don't display, they don't produce light. So you need backlighting. There's two kinds of backlighting that you can run into. There's fluorescent technology and there's LED-based technology. LED is the way to go. Even though it's more expensive, it's going to be thinner and lighter, produce lower or consume lower power. And what we care about is it's going to give us a great brightness, a great contrast ratio, as we like to call it, and we'll review in a moment. A lot of people will mistakenly say they have an LED display when what they really mean is it's a liquid crystal display that is being backlit through the power of LED technology. Now, I know, you might be getting hungry for some new technology in the world of displays. I mean, after all, as I indicated, we give them so much of our attention, don't we? Well, there are new technologies coming along, and realize that they tend to hit television systems first, and then that technology makes its way to our desktop. Here on the left, you can see an OLED TV. That's OLED, and it stands for Organic Light Emitting Diode. So there's this organic compound that has what's called emissive electroluminescent qualities that will emit light in response to electric current. What's really cool about this is you're not backlighting it. Even though you're not backlighting it, though, you can get these really impressive contrast ratios. It looks great in low light conditions. So wonderful. OLED televisions, and we can't wait for the monitors to come out. They are starting to come out, but sure enough, they're very expensive. There's plasma. You may have heard of these televisions now. Plasma TVs work by having small cells that contain ionized gases, similar to what we would find in fluorescent lamps. You get incredible picture quality with this technology, and you get wider viewing angles. Remember, that's something that is always going to be trying improved upon, and that is the ability to stand anywhere in a room, let's say, and look at that screen and it looks great. We know with earlier LCD technology, a lot of the early screens look wonderful if we're sitting directly in front of them, but move to a slight angle and the quality degrades immediately. So they're always trying to work on that better viewing angle, and obviously higher contrast ratios and great looking colors. But for a lot of business professionals these days, they don't really care what their display looks like. No, because they are going to be projecting what they want to present to a whole room full of people. So there are many different form factors today for projectors. Some of my favorites, I sure wish they had been invented when I was traveling around and training with a projector. They're Pico for small. They're these little Pico projectors. They could fit literally in your pocket, and then you set it on a desk and you have this amazing projector for a room full of people. This is a larger unit that would sit on a table. And one of the things I wanted to show you, of course, was the rear of the machine to let you know that they support the oldest connection technologies for displays. This is an analog VGA port to the newest technologies. This is a digital HDMI port. We know the HDMI technology we've discussed in other nuggets allows us to convey audio and video in glorious detail, and it is a digital as opposed to analog communications media. So let's cover some other properties of displays today that we're going to want to master for A+ certification, and let's do so on my Windows desktop. By the way, you can see my Bing picture of the day is this beautiful winter scene, not really doing much for the colors that my monitor is capable of, but oh well. And I guess it's a winter scene because, yes, I'm recording this in the middle of winter. Well, let's go to display settings. And inside of display settings here, you'll see that we can identify this particular monitor that I'm on. This is great for multiple monitors. You see, if I hit detect and were to connect multiple monitors, they would show up. And then I can hit the identify button and it'll put a big number on the monitor that's number 1 and a big number on the monitor that's number 2. Maybe we have 4 monitors. We can quickly see which monitor it thinks is which. We can then arrange those monitors in this window to change the behavior of how they work. This is like stretching the desktop across the monitors. You can also choose to do what's called mirroring when you have multiple monitors, and that is have every single monitor show exactly the same thing. That would be useful if you're like giving a presentation. You want to see the presentation on one monitor, you want it projected for someone else on another monitor, you want both screens to match. Most of us, when we're working with multiple monitors though, we want to extend the desktop so that it is one seamless, like one big monitor as we move the mouse back and forth. Now notice that we can change the brightness of this display, and this is obviously extremely important, and the brightness is a key factor. The capabilities of your LCD is a key factor when you're shopping for one. The greater the ratio of contrast, it's called the contrast ratio, then the brighter your image can be on screen. Something else, let's see where they hit it. Let me actually resize the screen so we can see the whole thing. Let me scroll down. Oh, okay, look at this. This particular monitor that I'm dealing with allows rotation. So if I rotate the monitor into a portrait orientation, it will literally flip the screen into portrait. This is great when you're reading a long document. So monitors will allow the change of orientation, and in this case, I could lock it into landscape mode if I wanted to. Notice the advanced display settings. Let's go in there, and this is where we see resolution, the number of pixels that we are going to display on screen. The higher the resolution, the sharper things are going to look. It's really incredible. But what's the problem with that for our users? Well, users that are, a bit vision impaired, like me, that have to wear glasses now, and even with the glasses, that's starting to fail for me. When we do really high resolutions, all of the icons, all the text on screen seems super small. So notice Windows is great about that. It allows the advanced sizing of text and other items so that you can have a really high resolution, but you can blow up text and menu items and icons and things of that nature. There's also a clear type text feature that will allow you to try and sharpen the text that's on screen. There's color calibration. By the way, back to the subject of resolution. Notice if I drop this list, there's lots of different resolutions that I could go to, blowing things up dramatically on screen, but not giving me the quality that I might want. And that is why there is a resolution recommended here. My monitor is literally telling this software, look, my best resolution is 1920 by 1080. That's called its native resolution. So the monitor is saying, I was designed to look best at 1920 by 1080. That's my native resolution, and this software is reporting that to me. If we go under display adapter properties, we can see the HD Graphics 4000 drivers that are powering this display. We can see that on this Intel HD graphics card, there is video memory. So there is video RAM on this system, about 2 gig of video graphics memory. Cool, that's one of the reasons why the graphics does so well. If you go in and you look at the properties of this adapter card, we'll see that we can control the exact version of software, the driver that powers this. We could roll back if we upgraded and there was a problem. One of the things that I'm looking for is the refresh rate, and that would be under the monitor tab. So here's the screen refresh rate. We can adjust it for this screen. It's at 60 Hertz. Remember, the refresh rate is how quickly we're repainting this screen to produce the image. The higher the better, since our human eye would see no flickering whatsoever. Don't confuse refresh rate with what's called frame rate. Frame rate is where the system is getting from the application what needs to be painted on the screen. Your applications are putting out these windows and things of that nature, and that is the frame rate, the speed at which they do that. Think about it, the refresh rate better be faster than the frame rate, or you could have problems. So we're seeing high refresh rates to keep up with all of the great information that applications these days are throwing very quickly at the screen. Now, a couple of other terms I want you to be familiar with when it comes to displays these days is aspect ratio and then privacy/anti-glare shields. The aspect ratio is simply 2 numbers. They don't mean like inches or anything like that. They're just explaining the relationship of the display between its width and its height. A long time in this industry, we were stuck with 4:3. This was basically a very square image, a square monitor. Around 2006, we moved to 1610 as a standard, and then around 2010, we were looking at 16:9 type displays. These days, oh my goodness, you're starting to get all kinds of interesting aspect ratios because of new technologies. Like my iMac would have this really powerful width to height ratio. How about these new very widescreen curved monitors? So anytime you have 2 numbers that are describing the proportional relationship between the width and height of your display, that's its aspect ratio. Now, if you're worried about someone looking over your shoulder and seeing what you're working on, you can get a privacy shield as I show here. There's also anti-glare shields that you could use if you were having to see like a laptop LCD and you were outside in the blazing sun. I don't know if you've noticed it, but an iPad, for example, does not work well in direct sunlight. Unfortunately, just like the Apple Watch is going to suffer from that as well. So we can get anti-glare shields to try and cut down on that. So it was certainly fun and entertaining to step through history of displays and see some of the older technologies together and some of the newer technologies together and learn important terminology like native resolution and brightness and aspect ratios and refresh rates and frame rates and twisted pneumatic and in-plane switching LCD technologies. But I'll tell you, what's more important for you and I is troubleshooting displays, and we'll be doing that together in the appropriate nugget of this course. I sure hope you found this nugget informative, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.